Well, good evening, and welcome to the July 11th meeting of the governing body. I will call this meeting to order. If you will give your attention to Councilwoman Hofer, who will provide the invocation. Stand as you are able, and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Sorry, I'll start again. Reverend Raymond Toyne is a third-generation Topeka, living his whole life in the community of Oakland, where he currently resides with his wife Liz and sons Owen and Ryan. He serves as the worship pastor at Oakland Church of the Nazarene, his home church for the last 29 years. He is a graduate of Highland Park High School in Topeka. He works full-time for the Kansas National Guard as an emergency management specialist and has served as a member of the Kansas Army National Guard for 21 years. He was commissioned as a chaplain in 2022 and placed with the 1st of the 161st Field Artillery Battalion in Hutchinson. And he is also a chaplain for the Topeka Police Department. Nope.
Not that one.
Not that one. Okay. Sorry, go ahead, Raymond. Got the wrong one.
Maybe when a few things get off the plate. Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you for having me here tonight. If you would like to, I invite you to join me as I pray. Dear God, I begin by giving you thanks. Thank you for all of your creation. God, I give you thanks for breathing your breath of life into our lungs, your provision and sustainment, and the grace and mercy afforded to all through your Son, Jesus Christ. I give you thanks for this wonderful city, and I give you thanks for all who reside here, who work to create community and call this city home. Father God, I pray that as leaders and citizens gather here to do the business of the city, that wisdom and discernment is practiced in this place. I pray that love for neighbor and concern for everyone's well-being is placed at the forefront of decision-making tonight. I pray that those who have voices to be raised will be heard, and I pray those who have ears will listen to the hearts and concerns of their fellow citizens. God, I pray for our elected leaders and city officials as they serve and care for our communities, as it can be difficult work. Help them to understand and hear the concerns of their constituents, find places to compromise and agree to move our city forward to the best place for all of us, and to find peace and rest when needed. God, I continue to pray for the city and citizens of Topeka. Bless this place and all those that call Topeka their home. It is in your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend. Okay. We'll move on with the agenda and ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Mayor Padilla.
Here.
Council members Hiller.
Here.
Valdivia Acala.
Here.
Ortiz.
Here.
Emerson. Kale.
Here.
Nager.
Here.
Dobler.
Here.
Duncan. And Hofer.
Here.
We have 8 present with council members Emerson and Duncan absent.
Okay. Move on to agenda item number 2, appointments. If the clerk will read.
A is a board appointment recommending the appointment of Lindsay Freeman to the Topeka Sustainability Advisory Board for a term ending July 11, 2025. B is an advisory council appointment of Monique Vopay to the City of Topeka Americans with Disability Act ADA Advisory Council for a term ending July 11, 2025. And C is a board appointment recommending the appointment of Leilani Gray to the Topeka Sustainability Advisory Board for a term ending July 11, 2025.
Okay, you've heard the appointments as read. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion approved.
Oh, second.
Okay. Motion to approve by Councilwoman Nager, second by Deputy Mayor Dobler. If you'll call the roll, please.
Council members Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Hofer,
Yes.
Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Aquila,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
and Kell.
Yes.
We have 7 yes, the motion carries.
Okay, motion's been carried, and I believe all 3 of our appointees are in the audience. If I would ask you to stand so we can recognize you and thank you for stepping forward to serve the city. Thank you very much. Move on to agenda item number 3, presentations. Brenda, if you'll read.
The presentation tonight is Write the Mayor a Letter initiative.
Yeah, I have Lisa Staley. Lisa, good to see you. Yes, please.
On behalf of the Topeka Shawnee County Public Library, we have been collecting letters that the community has written to the mayor all week. As part of summer reading, we give prizes for reading, and we try to encourage learning and lifelong learning. And this summer, the theme, All Together Now, talks about community and civic engagement. And I thought we needed to do as an assignment, a passive activity where all week people could come in and interact around this idea. And Mayor Padilla was willing to graciously pose for a life-size cardboard cutout of himself. And so we have had that in the Learning Center of the library all week, and it has been wonderful. We have letter templates that people have been filling in that I'll read a few from and then hand all the letters over to the mayor. I think we're going to let it run another week because it's been so popular. So I will mail in the rest of the letters. But it's been amazing because we heard things like, oh, we have a mayor? That's the mayor? I heard a mom say, it's like the president, but just of Topeka, to help her kids understand. I heard people starting the little bits of conversation that lead to understanding we have local government, understanding that these are real people leading our city, understanding that they can write to our local government with their concerns. So if it's okay, I'll share just a few concerns and praises from these letters. Dear Mayor Padilla, my name is Harrison. I am happy. A place I like to go in Topeka is Bobo's Burgers. One thing I'm glad Topeka has is its great history and the people who live here. If I could add something to Topeka, I would add a 100,000-foot cheese factory. Sincerely, Harrison. Dear Mayor Padilla, my name is Kevin. I am done coloring. There was also a coloring sheet. It was not as popular with Kevin. A place I like to go in Topeka is the zoo. If I could add something to Topeka, I would add more puppies. My name is Alexa. I'm 7 years old. I'm a second grader. A place I like to go in Topeka is the Gage Park Pool and the library. One thing I'm glad Topeka has is city buses and the zoo. If I could add something to Topeka, I would add more outside water parks. Dear Mayor Padilla, my name is Kaylin. Something I want you to know about me is I want to pursue a job in interior design. Some places I like to go in Topeka include Cafe Barnabas and McDonald's. One thing I'm glad Topeka has is the mall, which includes my favorite boba place, Cafe Barnabas. Something I wish was different in our city is I wish there was more trees and nicer people. In Topeka, I'm most concerned about pollution problems. I'm proud of myself because I got an honor roll in school. I'm proud of our city because we keep improving our surroundings with new beneficial buildings. I'm going to dig for this other one here. Dear Mayor Padilla, my name is Christina. I'm a mother and grandmother of 15 grandchildren. A place I like to go in Topeka is Fiesta Mexicana. The one thing I'm glad Topeka has is free children's activities. If I could add something to Topeka, I would add a downtown park area. Evergy is great, but a swing, slides, a trail park place would be great. So there are many more letters, which can I approach to deliver, or should somebody else? Is that okay?
Sure.
I don't want to break the rules. We very much appreciate this opportunity to introduce people in our community to how to interact with local government, and we hope to be able to do more, so reach out with your ideas. And we were so grateful to be able to help people write a letter to the mayor.
Yeah, Lisa, thank you very much. I've got a lot of comments from the public, especially last Saturday when I was down at the Mini Jamaica at Evergy. And I don't know how many people told me that when they walked in and saw that cutout, I don't know who did it, they started to wave until they decided, oh, that's not really a person. And I think even a friend of mine who went there, who works there, she was told that the mayor was coming, and she walked around the corner and started to wave. Oh, no, that's not him. So It must have been a really good
It's very realistic.
reproduction.
If you go take a selfie with it, Facebook will try to tag the mayor in your post. So,
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. And thank you for everybody who participated. Okay, move on to agenda item number 4, the consent agenda.
A is a resolution introduced by Councilmember Karen Hiller approving a special event known as the Culture Kansas Fest. B is a resolution introduced by Councilmember Karen Hiller approving a special event known as a Cruise in the Capitol After Party. C is a resolution introduced by Councilmember Karen Hiller granting the Celtic Fox an exception to the provisions of City of Topeka Code Section 945-150 at seat concerning noise prohibitions. D is an ordinance introduced by Councilmember Spencer Duncan concerning the Land Bank Board of Trustees term of office, amending Section 3 of Ordinance Number 20426 to be codified at TMC 2260030. E is approval of a utilities engineering contract between the City of Topeka and WSP USA Environment and Infrastructure Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $542,205 for engineering services. F are minutes of the regular meeting of June 30, 2023. There is one application for Love's Travel Shop, Cereal Malt Beverage, located at 1811 Northwest Brickyard Road. And H is approval of a professional services agreement between the City of Topeka, Kansas Personnel Services doing business as key staffing for temporary employment services to include clerical, general, and skilled labor positions. And I is approval of a professional services agreement between the City of Topeka and 22nd Century Technologies for temporary employment services to include skilled labor positions.
Thank you. You've heard the consent agenda is read. Is there a motion to entertain?
So moved.
Motion to approve by Deputy Mayor Dobler, second by Councilman Kell. If you'll call the roll, please.
Councilmember Dobler,
Yes.
Hofer,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Akala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
and Kell,
Yes.
and Nager.
Yes.
We have 8 yes. Motion carries.
Okay, motion's been carried. Move to agenda item 5, action items, if the clerk will read.
5A is a resolution introduced by Acting City Manager Richard Neinstead, making certain findings pursuant to the Kansas Reinvestment Housing Incentive District Act with regard to an application submitted by RMD Development LLC to establish a reinvestment housing incentive district and requesting that the Secretary of Commerce review the resolution and advise the governing body.
And Mayor and governing body will have the Planning and Development Director, Rihanna Friedman, address you on this, or Friedman.
Brianna?
Friedman. Good evening, everybody. So earlier last week, you were sent out this presentation that gives a really nice overview of the Aquarian Acres Sherwood Park proposed RHID district. And then I've also included a memo that just gives a little overview. If you'd like me to run through the presentation quickly, I'm happy to do that. Thank you. So the City of Topeka received 2 applications originally requesting the creation of an RHID district, one for Aquarian Acres subdivision and then one for Sherwood Park. After conversations with the developer, working closely with them, RMD Development LLC stated that their intent was to request that both of these properties be created as one district. The way that works is that the one district will be tied by one development agreement. So a single development agreement would outline all the work to be completed in both districts entirely. So this evening, staff is seeking approval that we be able to send this district to Kansas Department of Commerce for approval. And then if fully approved, a project plan and development agreement will come back to the governing body for review with all of the details, as you would expect. Here are some of the highlights of the district that I can tell you about this evening. Aquarian Acres is proposing 16 additional single-family homes with future development of potentially 36 other additional units. And then Sherwood Park's proposal would add 18 additional single-family homes with potential for 71 in the future. Homes in these developments will consist of primarily 2 to 5 bedrooms, 2 to 3 baths, and 2 to 3 car garage residence. These these are really set up to be able to meet the demand of the purchaser, right? This is not going to be a one-size-fits-all type of development. They're trying to meet the market demand. So with that, right now, they're still estimating costs, but the estimated value is that homes will include both basement and slab homes that will start between $350,000 and $400,000. So Aquarian Acres is located northwest of 29th and southeast of Croco Road. So I don't know how you can see this, but right there in the center in red is outlined, and that represents the 16 lots that will be developed in the first phase of this. So this will require an extension of Southeast Virgo Avenue and a connection to Southeast Howard Drive.
Am I waiting for the next slide?
Yeah.
Okay.
The next one is Sherwood Park. Is it? Well, that's okay. I can still talk about it since you have the presentations, and then it's, of course, attached in the packet, too. So Sherwood Park, located at roughly north of Southwest 27th Street, and requires a continuation of Southwest Ava Street. So that will be the 18 homes that'll be proposed, that they'll take place in phase one. And if you see the presentation in your packet, phase one is indicated by a yellow overlay that outlines where those first 18 homes will be developed in the first phase of the project. So just to highlight some of the next steps in the process, the application requesting a district be created was submitted on June 13th. So we've gone through the process of reviewing this to make sure that it meets the requirements of our housing study. And so tonight we'll be seeking approval to send that to Kansas Department of Commerce. And then should Commerce approve the creation of a district, the developer will submit a full-fledged housing plan where they talk about more of the details around the costs, better projections of what will go into the homes, and they'll really start to finalize and shape their plan. Then we'll look at that for approving a financial analysis with our financial advising team, and then we will put together a development agreement that will come before you all to review and hopefully approve.
Thank you, Rihanna. Questions for the director? Seeing none, is there a motion?
I'd move approval.
Motion approved by Councilman Emerson. Second by Deputy Mayor Dobler. You'll call the roll, please.
Okay, Councilmember Hofer,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Aquila,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Kale,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
and Dobler.
Yes.
We have 9 yes, motion carries.
Okay, motion's been carried. Thank you again, Rihanna.
Thank you.
We'll move on to action item B. Brenda, if you read, please.
So,
B is an ordinance introduced by Acting City Manager Richard Neinstead, amending City of Topeka Code Section 215-090 concerning redistricting and repealing original sections.
Mr. City Manager.
so Mayor and governing body, before you actually discuss this, Andrew Howe, Shawnee County Election Commissioner, is here to visit with you or answer any questions you have on how this has taken place. And I might add that Andrew and I were in southeast Kansas at the same time, but he stayed up here.
Mr. Commissioner, good to see you.
Thank you. I wanted to, again, thank you. Good to see you again after, I don't know, almost 30 years. It's been a while. I just wanted to answer any questions you may have about it, and then just do a quick explanation. Every 10 years we have to redistrict, and that's statutorily required. Part of the challenge for us is redistricting is a state function primarily, at least initially, and then we have to have, the county has to do its redistricting at some point, the city does its at some point, and those are kind of staggered, kind of depending on when the city chooses to do that or the county chooses to do that. So one of the things that we try to do every 10 years is to make sure that those precincts make as much sense as possible. I think we're very fortunate here in Shawnee County that we really have not had any major changes. I know there were some counties that had pretty significant changes.
I try not to make major changes to precincts unless it's truly necessary for a couple of reasons. One, I like to make sure that we're not creating confusion in the minds of the public. And when you get to doing a lot of changes, I think there's a big potential for that. Same reason I don't make a lot of changes to polling places unless I absolutely have to. It creates question marks in people's minds, and we really try to make it as easy to figure out where your precinct is or your voting place is as possible. I guess a couple of points just to kind of give you a better sense of what we're doing. No council member has lost any population, so it doesn't affect your council districts technically in that regard. No council member has had a district boundary change, so we're not doing that. No precincts were taken away. We've basically, I believe there were 3 different precincts that had 3 people that lived in, or one had 3, another had 3, and another had 1. We've combined those and done, it's all combinations of precincts where it makes sense. I think it's a pretty straightforward, pretty simple approach to it. And the law requires that we make those, publish them. We've already gone through the publication process. We've already published those and completed those. As much as anything, I think we were just trying to make sure that we were communicating effectively with City Commission to make sure if you had questions or other thoughts on them, and that it was in your ordinances as well. Having said all that, if you've got questions, I'm happy to try to answer those about the process. And there's more things I can go into, but I don't want to take too much of your time unnecessarily either. Like I said, it's really a case of a number of smaller slivers due to redistricting that really should be combined. Additionally, on election night, it makes it easier for reporting purposes if we don't have a lot of either no voter or low voter precincts. And it also protects the privacy of the voter if we combine those, because statute says that if there are 20 or less voters in a precinct, that we have to combine it with another precinct for reporting purposes. So it ends up being a lot of unnecessary work, and I think it can create confusion and question marks in the minds of voters to have a lot of low population precincts out there. So we're trying to make it easier for voters and to make it clearer and to protect their privacy as voters. If you've got 3 people in a precinct, you really don't want one of those people to show up and vote and then to know potentially how they voted as a direct result of that. So that's really what's driving these changes. But I'd be happy to try to answer any questions, or if there's anything else you'd like me to address, I'd be happy to try to do that.
Councilman Emerson.
Yeah, Mr. Howell, good evening.
Evening.
First of all, I ran for election twice, and I wanted to thank you. I mean, you and your office do a great job. Usually when we're doing that, it's our first or maybe second time, or in the case of Karen and Sylvia, our 10th time. But you guys do a lot to really make people feel comfortable and let us all know the process as elected officials. So really appreciate that. I did have a question though. What do we think about the outcome of the 2020 presidential? Never mind. I retract that question. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll pass on that one.
Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. This took me by surprise. And so as you're even presenting, I'm remembering that I have now run 10 times, but a few. And I have precincts that the last time I ran, and forgive me if I'm off just a little bit, ran from a population of 97 to 1,600. Or if it wasn't 1,600 in my district, it was somebody else's. And when redistricting occurred, and I think Councilwoman Hofer was wanting to ask you some questions, when it occurred, it was very hard to redraw the lines when you had a natural border, but you couldn't trade off. The precincts were so out. We've really struggled here because the precincts have been so out of size, and I wasn't sure what happened to get them changed, and I guess I'm finding out today. But do you ever ask for input beforehand, or go through a process of looking at the comparative size to kind of get them ready for the 10 years later? Because it seemed like a logical time to do it right now.
Sure. We're actually out. So the other thing I haven't explained is statute gives us a very narrow window to make those changes. So we're actually out of that window at this point in time. So there's a very narrow window to do it. Additionally, I think I understand what you're saying. The other thing that complicates and makes it difficult to make some of the changes I would like to make is it just simply depends on where boundaries for state and state representative and state senators, you can't cross those boundaries or split them up. You got to be careful how you
how you do that. So when you're trying to enlarge a smaller district or take in more population, you kind of have to look at all of the different districts that exist and be careful you're not crossing boundaries to create problems in doing that. So there are some restrictions. I will say this, I think that our precinct size in Shawnee County generally make a lot more sense than they do in some of the other larger jurisdictions, because I know in some voting locations they have 5,000 and 6,000 people, and that makes it very, very tough from a voter time in line or worrying about people standing in line for 45 minutes at a time. So I guess I'm not quite answering your question. Your question is, if you've got a precinct, I think, that has 97 people, we do try to deal with that. But I think the other thing that's difficult is we're not able to go out and, like, the population of registered voters may be 97, but the actual population might be 250. So there is some variation also just in registration numbers versus actual population numbers. It's the other kind of complicating factor to keep in mind.
Thank you.
Further questions? Councilwoman Hofer.
Okay, I've got a few different ones.
Okay.
I was looking ahead. We recently annexed for Washburn Rural Middle School. It probably won't have any residents. So will it be combined with the next nearest?
Typically, if we're confident that there will not be significant population, then yes, I would say most of the time we just enlarge it with the nearest precinct. That's typically what we do.
Okay, then say another section, well, parcel of land is developed and is adjacent, but then it pushes the population up high. Do you have the ability to maybe split it off at some point?
Yeah, we have the ability to completely form brand new precincts, and we can combine precincts. So you can go either way. I think, like I said, the bigger challenge typically is not creating confusion, making sure that you have a polling location that can adequately serve that population. That gets to be a challenge at times. But we really haven't, I don't know that I would say that we've had a situation where we've had a need yet that I thought was significant enough to actually create a new precinct, except for cases where we've got some annexations. I think we have done that a time or two on some annexations where we had to.
Okay, because I'm looking, that is on the west side. Then on the east side, they approved a subdivision, a brand new one that's, I guess, on the east side of Croco. That one will be set up as soon as people start moving and building in it, and that's when it'll be established.
I believe that your city clerk sends those notices to us fairly quickly, either right about the time you're working on them, maybe a little bit prior, and then we start looking at those, trying to figure out what we think the population will be, and try to make determinations based on that, which way to go. I will say I'm happy to take input. If you've got thoughts on them, I'm happy to take the input. I think one of the challenges in the office is a lot of times, like I said, the time frames to do those things is pretty tight. I know Karen Hiller has visited with me, I think, a couple of different times about some of those issues in the past. So we've had the conversation, I know. And I will just say, as a general rule, I find redistricting to be a challenge because I spend time at State House talking about what I would like to see occur. And quite frankly, there's a lot of different people. It's very difficult to affect change, let's just say it that way, because there's a lot of different people involved in that process. So we try to make some changes, and we did get a few things. But for example, in the 2012 redistricting, there was actually a building on the, I think it was in the, I can't remember the precinct name, that literally had a development that had a building cut in half with a line, which we then had to try to figure out what to do with it because I can't change lines. So there are things that we have to do, that we have to deal with that aren't particularly simple or easy, and we managed to figure out how to deal with it, and we did get that one taken care of. So
If you're looking for a response, mostly to create, and Councilwoman Hofer's been on that commission, but we've watched juggling back and forth between districts 2 and 3. I'm in the middle, so when I'm low or high, then how do you flip and just adjust to make as little as possible change. And so in simple terms, the idea of splitting some of them in half down a major street so that the building blocks were a little more movable and changeable was what a lot of us had thought at the time. And I don't know, just a suggestion then, if it's too late to do anything.
Well,
10 years ago.
one of the other challenges, quite frankly, in both 2012 and this last one was, of course, redistricting went super late. Like the state process just simply went so late that we were basically doing a mop-up operation to get our stuff done, to get the election set up. So I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm just saying the reality is sometimes the timeframes to get that stuff done just isn't there, and we have to just make it work. So that's part of what's happened for 10 years ago as well as this one, to be honest with you. So.
Further questions?
Well, since I was chair of the redistricting commission this last time, and we were looking at what could we move, and it came down to the smallest precincts to try and balance it out. I know one had like 220. Well, the ones next to it were 500, 600. I remember one being 1,700. So you knew you couldn't move those. So I'm afraid some of the districts will end up being the small ones, the ponds that get moved every 10 years or so. And I would like to see it be easier than what we looked at. It
I'm
wasn't
happy.
that bad, but
I'm happy if you all would like to. I'm happy to put together kind of a task force can look at it and talk about it for the future. I think it's a number of years out, but I'm happy to do that if you'd like to at some point. So let me know if that's an interest. We're happy to do that.
okay. We'd appreciate that.
Appreciate it.
And I wanted to do it now since this had come up before it got forgotten another, 10 years from now,
Right.
9 years from now.
Yep, understood.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you, Mr. Howell.
Thank you.
Okay, we move to item 5C.
But
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, but first you'll have to unlock your device.
Okay. Okay, too many devices around here. Okay,
I move to approve.
okay, motion to approve by Councilwoman Hofer. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Emerson. Although, call the roll, please.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Aquila,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes, 10 times.
Emerson,
Yes.
Kale,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yeah.
and Hofer.
Yes.
All right, we have 8 yes, motion carries.
Okay. Now we'll move on to action item 5C. If you'll read, Brenda.
C is an ordinance introduced by Acting City Manager Richard Neinstein amending, C is an ordinance introduced by the members of the Public Health and Safety Committee concerning retaliatory eviction, amending sections 925-010 through 030 of the Topeka Municipal Code and repealing original sections and creating sections 925-040 and 050.
Okay. Acting City Manager, do you have anything?
So I will let Councilwoman Hiller explain this.
Councilwoman, do you want to speak now, or do you want to let public comment on
I'll go ahead and introduce it.
Okay.
I think we have one conferring anyway. Let me ask just the group first, if people want some specifics. It is on. Yes. Are there people that want me to walk through some specifics of the ordinance or just a quick overview? Just looking around the room. Okay. I think most of you know that this is the second of the policy issues rolling up through the Public Health and Safety Committee and the Changing Our Culture of Property Maintenance. We've been advised that the LLC and the piece that we did in the fall is moving well. So again, this is the second one that's rolling up. For those of you that are watching, have been watching for it, our vegetation ordinance, which we thought we were going to do this winter as well, is probably going to roll up this fall instead. At the direction of the city manager, staff, we've held off on that. We are in our second mowing season, and we're on deck for a task force on vacant properties this summer. So that's a nutshell of where we are with changing our culture of property maintenance. On behalf of Public Health and Safety and Change Our Culture, retaliatory eviction ordinance update is what we have today. We've had this, an ordinance prohibiting retaliatory evictions on the books since the mid-1970s. It was designed for prevention and worked very well in that manner. But given particularly some developments lately, it was felt that, and our consultant Karen Black recommended that we raise the bar a little bit on what we had and add and with the city attorney's willingness to move forward to add a prosecution element that the city would do to that. There's been a lot of work on that. I want to credit particularly Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala and City Attorney Stanley for back and forth with the details. Once we got a draft that was ready to go, we vetted that with the key knowledgeable and advocacy groups, both landlords associations, the Shawnee County Landlords Association and the Apartment Council, and then 5 close-in affordable housing agencies, Housing and Credit Counseling that does counseling for us, Cornerstone, Habitat, Scent, and the City of Topeka's housing staff to get any feedback and fine-tuning about making sure we're not missing anything. We had active comments from all of them, responded, and what you have in front of you is the final draft after those comments, and all of those conferees have supported moving this forward. I'm really proud of the work and appreciative of the work that everyone has done on this. With that, I can stand for questions, so can City Attorney Stanley. But I'm prepared to move to approve this updated version.
Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala?
Thank you, Mayor. Can I add my comments in now?
Sure.
Okay. I hope that colleagues do support this. I think that this ordinance, along with the LLC, is strengthening what we continue to say that we want to do in Topeka, which is to make Topeka better. And these 2 ordinances, now tonight with the retaliatory eviction, what this is going to do is this is going to be another move in the direction of helping make Topeka better, not just for some, but for all. Because we know, and I'm just going to be point blank in it, that we have an issue in some areas of Topeka of just blatant slumlords. And what we have is that we have, and I think specifically about children and elders that are living in rental properties that we ourselves on this governing body, and I'm sure many in this audience, would not even consider living in and staying in, but they do because of fear of retaliatory eviction. And so I hope that with the rigorous work that Karen Black did and the incredible due diligence that she had with getting feedback from so many stakeholders and then looking at the lay of the land realistically, honestly, and in a fact-driven manner, that all will come on and support this. Thank you, Mayor.
Before we vote, have Mr. Pat DeLapp signed up for public comment. Mr. DeLapp?
Hi, I'm going to oppose this. I want a correction on that. I'm a member of Shawnee County Landlord Association. We did not vote to move forward on this. We expressed some concern with it, kind of thought, it's kind of a waste of time. Housing Credit Council thought the same thing. I mean, it's not going to hurt anything, but it doesn't really improve anything. And here's why. The Kansas Residential Landlord Tenant Law came out in 1975. This law existed before then, and it's kind of archaic. Kansas has been able to keep their landlord tenant law almost model without changes, without messing it up, because you make one change in legislation, all of a sudden everybody else wants these other changes, and it gets very confusing. Kansas residential landlord-tenant law covers all of this and much better than this ordinance does. If you want to write some notes down, I'll tell you what they are. Under KSA 582572, certain retaliatory actions by landlord prohibited, remedies, increase in rent when action, and things like this. If a landlord does things, which covers probably more stuff in this, the tenant can get 1.5 times the periodic rent for violating the law here. If they rent them a unit and decide later not to rent or not make the unit available, they can get 1.5 times the periodic rent plus 1.5 times in damages. There's a lot of protections in the law. 582560, failure of the landlord to deliver possession remedies. 582563 is unlawful removal or exclusion of tenants, diminished services, damages, and deposits. Again, 1.5 times whatever damages the landlord has caused to it. These have been available since 1975. It does an excellent job. It far exceeds the protection that this ordinance is going to be given. HCCI said, or Karen Hiller said, in her 30 years down there, they've only seen 5 cases. 5 cases in 30 years they felt should be turned over to the city for prosecution. So that's 1 every 6 years. That's a screaming problem, isn't it? No, it's not. It's not at all. The screaming problems we do have is we are a homeless mecca in the city of Topeka. We should be working on that. We should be working on the fact that we are well on our way right now to breaking our all-time record for the murder rate in Topeka. I'm not for this because of that. I also see problems with the Topeka Housing Authority was not consulted. They have a drug-free, crime-free addendum, which is a good tool. What that occurs, if a crime occurs on your property, and it doesn't matter if you occurred it, but one of your guests did, guess what? You can be put out. That is federal law as far as the housing authority is concerned. Will that invalidate that? I think there's a possibility it could be. Let the big boys handle that. You want to go up to the federal courts on this? There's also an issue with the homeless tax, which I know next week we're going to do in it. We're under the impression right now that we can't move these people along unless we offer them another place to live. If we do have a place that we offer them, then we can move them on. But if they don't, we can't. You know what? Dead wrong on that. That is the 9th Circuit Federal Court. Kansas is in the 10th. It did try to... Additional time, please.
How much time would you like?
Give me a couple of minutes.
Okay. Okay, motion to approve 2 more additional minutes. And a second? Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, go ahead, 2 more minutes, Pat.
Okay, it did try to make it up to the U.S. Supreme Court, and if the Supreme Court ruled one way or another, that would become the law of the land. Well, we're not the law of the land. The U.S. Supreme Court gets 10,000 requests to hear a case a year. They choose very little. They showed so little interest in it, they didn't even sign the order saying we're not hearing this. So we can still do that in Kansas, move these people along. We don't have, only a handful of states are subject to that rule. We need to change that back. We need to work on the homeless situation. It's horrible, horrible. I've got 4 windows broken out of my car because I wouldn't let them use my tenant's electricity. What I think we should do here is work on those 2 other issues. I mean, I almost feel like this is a waste of my time. Is it going to hurt anything? No. I don't think Karen Black either read the landlord-tenant law and knew it was in there, or she misread it. I think this ordinance should not pass, or if it does, let's modify it. Let's repeal the whole thing. Let the big boys, state, handle it, because this is much better, the Kansas residential landlord landlords, than anything put together here. Thank you.
Councilwoman Hiller.
I appreciate Pat's many points. I want to do a couple clarifications of fact, just for the record. KRLTA was passed in 1972. For some reason, in the section that he quoted, it mentions that it's not legal to increase rent or decrease services to a tenant who's complained, but it does not specify that you can't evict. And that's why in 1975, we passed this one. You will note, I was kind of surprised when I saw it, but on the cover sheet, it says no budgetary impact. If we had a lot of cases, there would be actually needing to take the time of the city attorney's office and the courts. The intent long ago and still is that this is out there to prevent problems. We had quite a surge of apartment complexes that were really in bad shape, and people were getting evicted. They were waiting for a long time to complain, thinking surely landlords would fix them. They were getting pushed out or decreased services either that were required by law or by their rental agreements. And so those were the details that are written in. They were there in more general terms before. They are a little more specific. You can see the red line version in what you have. But was to be very specific, so if we needed that extra step, at least it was there and people knew it. So.
Councilwoman Valdivia-Acala.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one more thing. I had it as number 1 to talk about in the first go-around I had, but I somehow missed it. But one of the things that we have talked about in
Mic check, please.
it's on. It's on. So one of the things that we had talked about that I brought up that is definitely needed if this would pass is a strong education campaign. Now, I have concerns, HCCI is a good organization. To me, when we talk about outreach and organizations, we don't wait for people to come to us, we go out to the people. To me, that's the true definition of outreach. I think within the city and the excellence that we have with community engagement that will be a part of this, we have to help educate community to know what the process is and to know how to take up for themselves and start fighting this fight against these bad landlords. And we have a lot of wonderful landlords in Topeka, but we also have a lot of crap landlords, and we know this because there's been articles in the Topeka newspaper written about them. And so with this, what we have to do is work with community and the city of Topeka and our partners to help educate and help lift this cloak of apathy or helplessness which has taken hold of so many residents living in these conditions. So it's not just the city, it's not just HCCI, it's not just other partners. It's going to take all of us to do it, not just some of us, all of us. And it's going to take helping lift up the people that are living in these dire situations. And I got 3 more calls since I got back from vacation, and they're not even in my district, of the same terrible living conditions. And they are afraid to go and tell the landlord because they'll be evicted. So my way of thinking, Karen Black knew what she was doing. She was no dummy. She worked for the money that we paid her. This has been vetted. There has been numerous meetings, and I stand behind this retaliatory eviction ordinance just like the LLC, so Topekans can know that there's some hope coming down the pike and that we're all in this together. Thank you, Mayor.
Further comments? Motion to approve by Councilwoman Hiller, second by Councilwoman Valdivia-Acala. If you will call the roll, please.
Council members Valdivia-Acala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Kale,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Hofer,
Yes.
and Councilmember Hiller.
Yes.
9 yes, motion carries.
Okay,
10, right?
motion's been carried.
Are we up to 10?
Pardon?
The mayor
Well, I think
doesn't
we're up
vote.
to 10.
I don't vote.
Oh. Missed it.
Okay, if we will move on to action Item 5D, Brenda, if you will read.
D is an ordinance introduced by Acting City Manager Richard Neinstedt concerning the adoption of the 2023 National Electric Code, amending 1430-010 of the Topeka Municipal Code and repealing original section.
Mr. Acting City
So
Manager.
Mayor and governing body, as a way of introduction, as you know, it's pretty perfunctory that we update our construction codes and we update our national electric code and our other codes every year. And Mr. Faulkner is here to talk to you tonight about adoption of the 2023 National Electric Code, so that those standards are the ones that we will operate under, with your approval.
Richard?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The city is looking at the proposal to adopt the 2023 National Electrical Code. It's published by the National Fire Protection Association. The city has a number of codes that we use for our inspections and our plan review. A lot of those codes we use for residential and commercial. This electrical code that we're proposing to adopt tonight is going to be used for our residential and our residential and commercial constructions and plan review. The code was reviewed by the governing body when we were going through the process of adopting some other codes. Governing body suggested that we make sure that we have our codes up to date and make sure we have the latest codes. By adopting this code, this helps us fall in line with that request. The national code is always adopted or revised every 3 years. Good practice is for the cities to adopt new codes every 3 to 6 years. By updating the codes, it allows us to stay current with the trends in the construction industry. The codes help us provide a safe environment for our citizens and improve the quality of life for the citizens as well. With the communities that we compare our codes to, the city of Topeka will be the first city to have the 2023 electrical code. The cities that we compare ourselves to is Lawrence, Manhattan, Overland Park, Shawnee, Leavenworth. They're in the 2017. So we will be the first city to have the 2023 electrical code adopted. The code was reviewed by the Electrical Board of Appeals. On that board, we have some electricians, contractors, and business owners. Also, the city staff, the electrical inspectors, and myself were liaison to the board. The board decided to adopt the electrical code as written, no amendments. Also, we took our proposal to the Policy and Finance Committee, and they recommended that we move forward with requesting the adoption of this code. Some notable changes that were made in the electrical code. When there's a fire at a residence, typically the fire department has to wait for F&G to come and cut the power off. One of the new requirements in the new electrical code, the 2023, is there's going to be a disconnect at the back of the house where when the fire department comes, they can just turn off the electricity to the house without waiting on F&G. Also, another notable change in the bathrooms used to be that if you had below the tub level, you could have electrical outlets in that area. They've taken it out. You can't have any electrical outlets around the tub anymore. Also, a section has been added for solar panels. Solar panels are a big thing. In the 2017, they weren't addressed. Now in the 2023, if we adopt this code, they will be addressed. So those are some notable changes in the code. And I'll stand for any questions or comments council may have.
Any questions for Richard? Councilwoman Hiller.
Just one. I'm trying to remember which council members, most of them are sitting around this table today. I mean, it was only a couple of years ago that you got a message from the council to kind of hurry it up, go with the modern ones, but traditionally before that, one of the things that had kind of made us out of kilter with other cities in a way was that we'd customized a lot of these codes and spent a lot of time on it. So for you to bring that forward with just 3 changes, or itemizing just three changes, are people getting pretty comfortable with just using the model code without local modifications anymore?
The electrical contractors are. We
Okay,
still, the
not
plumbing-
everybody.
Yeah, the plumbing code, the building code, those two are still very amended. But mechanical code, not so much, but the electrical code, the board really feels that we need to stick with that just because it's electricity and it's more, can be more dangerous than other things.
Well, that's great, and I guess for me, that validates the confidence that we have in the model codes as well. So, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. You just gotta run the extension.
You beat me to it. Have further questions for Richard? Seeing none, you've heard the ordinance is read. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve by Councilwoman Nager, second by Councilman Kell. If you'll call the vote, please.
Councilmembers Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Kale,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Hofer,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Yes.
and Valdivia Aqua.
Yes.
We have 10 yes, motion carries.
Motion's been carried. I feel much better about keeping the two of you safe, so.
I think you want to throw something in the tub with me, I'm just,
If you will move to action item 5E, if the clerk will read.
E is a resolution introduced by Acting City Manager Richard Neinstedt, amending Resolution Number 9392 to revise the mill and overlay project list for 2023 citywide half-cent sales tax projects.
Richard?
So, Mayor and Governing Body, I believe we talked about this at the last meeting, but Public Works Director is here again to lead you through this list. This is a list of doing our annual mill and overlay projects utilizing the citywide half-cent sales tax that came in this year, so I will turn it over to the Public Works Director.
Braxton?
Good evening, Council. Thank you. You'll remember in the spring, we came before you with an amendment to the CIP to identify $5 million of additional mill and overlay work to really move the needle in terms of our pavement management program. Once we engaged consultants to take a close look in those, we identified some anomalies. A couple of weeks ago, I was in front of you. The projects that we had initially identified in the southeast part of town, we found actually better candidates, and council went ahead and approved that substitution. I have one additional one, and this is over in the western part of town. We had identified a stretch of road along Fairlawn that our 2019 PCI had listed as a PCI of 53, which is the sweet spot for the mill and overlay. Council Member Hofer very kindly pointed out to me that requested that I take another deep dive into that one and take another look at it. Once I did so, I realized that that street had actually been microsurfaced after 2019, and the current condition is at 87, which is really good condition and doesn't warrant mill and overlay. Just to the north of there, Cedar Crest to Redbud Lane has a true PCI of 54, and that is the section that I would like to tackle. So it's basically a simple matter of substituting one section of Fairlawn that doesn't warrant mill and overlay with a section on Fairlawn that does warrant mill and overlay. And Councilmember Hofer very kindly sent me photos of that section when she went on her walk to verify that indeed it is a valid determination. So respectfully request your approval of this resolution.
Any further questions for Braxton? Councilwoman? Motion to approve by Deputy Mayor, second by Councilwoman Hofer. If you'll call the roll, please.
Councilmembers Emerson,
Yes.
Kale,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Yes.
Hofer, Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Aquila,
Yes.
and Ortiz.
Yeah.
We have 10 yes, motion carries.
Okay, motion's been carried. That completes our action items. We'll move to public comment. I have two gentlemen signed to speak. Mr. Brandlin, you're first up, sir.
Thank you and good evening. Once again, I'm here for PUD 2302, and I'd like to talk about the supplemental staff report that was handed out to you guys before the meeting. And there's some serious flaws in how this report was compiled. The data, a lot of bad data, and a lot of really bad assumptions. First thing I'd like to address is neighborhood recharacterization. The lot size of the proposed development is 50% of the size of the lots in the surrounding area. Okay, the architectural style is not ranch. The surrounding area is all single-story ranch houses. 2302 has 3 times the units as the surrounding area. 3 times the people, 3 times the cars, 3 times the traffic, okay? And then the big thing is that the zoning in the surrounding area is all R1, there's no M2, okay? Those are very important if you're a property owner in the area. Okay, the Sproaton Lane connection, which is one of the 4 items that you sent back to the Planning Commission, it indirectly acknowledges that 2302 has an access problem onto Rochester Road because if you quote from the staff report, this connection for the traffic, not the traffic, but the cyclists and the walking people, it'll give everybody an alternative to the accessing Rochester Road. Right now, it isn't safe for bikes or walkers to go onto Rochester Road. No sidewalks, no turning lanes, no signals, okay? The biggest problem is with the traffic study, okay? I think you call it Benesh Engineers. They admitted at the Planning Commission meeting on the 26th that no traffic study has ever been done on Rochester Road where this new development would have an access point. There's never been one done. Okay? The staff report uses traffic data from an area that's well outside the access point for PUD 2302. What they're talking about, they got their study from south of 25th Street. Well, 25th Street is the main artery going into the Dillon's Shopping Center on the west and the Walmart Shopping Center on the east. And magically, they come up with 6,800 cars a day. Well, the problem is that those 6,800 cars, the vast majority of them are between 25th and US 24. Anybody that shops where we go, very few go down to Walmart. They go north to the better Walmart. I think it's on 46th. Okay, so what they did is they got 6,800 trips, and that beefs up their vehicle per day number, and that's where they come up with the 3.9% increase in traffic. Well, that's totally wrong. Because if you have 30 units, 2 cars per unit because they have 2-car garages, that everybody makes 1 trip a day in and out. That's 60 trips in and out. Well, I don't know where they come up with their 35 trips a day. They quote some study. Is it a national study?
Mr. Brennan?
Could I get 2 more minutes, please?
So moved. Motion for 2 more minutes. Second by Councilman Valdivia Alcala. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
Proceed, sir.
So anyway, the traffic study is it's faulty data. They chose the wrong area to get the number of trips, the cars. The area that they chose has 2 lanes each way, traffic signals, and sidewalks, and turning lanes. The access point for Rochester Road is one lane each way, no sidewalks, no turning lanes, and no traffic lights. So how can you compare? That's like trying to make an apple and orange because you need that to make your report work. It's bad data. And then in the report, they also make reference to a Shawnee County futuristic, unplanned, unfunded, unapproved idea to improve Rochester Road. Well, they're going to hire a consultant in 27, and they'll study it for a while, and then the construction will take 3 years, and it should be done in 2031. Well, that's 8 years from now. Why would they even throw that in? But they do acknowledge by that that there is a problem with Rochester Road, completely ignored during the report. Okay? And then the floodplain issue. You know, I know what the floodplain maps say, and if you've been reading the papers lately, some people think 30% of them are incorrect. You know, floodplain people, FEMA people. Okay, I don't know if ours is correct or incorrect, but I can tell you that the property that PUD 2302 is going to be built on was underwater in 1996 and in 2005 and 2006. And I appreciate your listening once again. Thank you very much.
Sir. Okay, Mr. Henry McClure.
Henry McClure of downtown Topeka. Your Honor, council people, city manager. The inverse of that whole conversation, pro-development. At the turn of the century, we did things better. All the way back to 2000 and 2005, when we had a Metropolitan Planning Commission. And what was really cool about that is they took the the people on the Planning Commission and split them up. And you had a Zoning and Plating Committee, and you had a Planning and Policy Committee. And although the meetings weren't televised, they were noticed and they were public meetings. And you could go over projects case by case, whether it was zoning and plating or whether it was planning and policy to create new policies. And if we would go back to the old ways, things would be better. The MTPO hasn't met personally in 3 years. The MTPO's duty is to address issues, as this young man brings up every Tuesday. Life shouldn't come down to 4 minutes. You know, you got 4 minutes to make a presentation to change the world, because it sure doesn't work. But if we went back to the old ways and had more public involvement, we've got an opportunity now with the new planning director, and we've got a city manager that actually on the payroll, and he's got experience at his job. He'd be like a sage to us right now to give us guidance of how to maybe rebuild how we do things and maybe combine the city and county's planning commission, because whether we like it or not, Shawnee County really is one community. But I want to talk about traffic studies. We've gone over that. I'm trying to move a Pizza Hut 700 feet and have to do a new traffic study. And anytime you ever have a drive-through, you got to do a traffic study. So let's go to the boulevard. Let's bring back the boulevard. Let's say that I wanted to put as many drive-through restaurants on there as we have on Wanamaker. And if I have to go out and count them, I'll do it because I got all this extra time. So, but we shouldn't, are we just not going to do deals? What's the traffic study really going to tell you? I mean, you look at it, really the traffic study probably is you had to pay $15,000 to a consultant that probably talks you out of doing the deal. So why don't we be like the pro-development guys that gets ahead of the program? We have public involvement. Hey, do you want more restaurants in Topeka with drive-throughs? And then we get ahead of the program. And then you don't have to hear me come down and talk of, at the turn of the century, we did things better, all the way back to 2000 and 2005. But we've got to determine, that, hey, we're an urban area in the city, and there's going to be more cars. It's going to create more traffic, and that's why we live in the city. If you don't like it, move out, move somewhere else. I'll tell you what, I love living downtown. Whoever came up with the idea of taking some commercial buildings and making residents, that was a good idea. I took advantage of it. Plus, I'm walking distance to this place. So it's great. So let's think about creating, let's get ahead of the program. Let's bring back the boulevard. Let's have some more drive-throughs, but let's get it solved ahead of the time and make it to where the developer doesn't have to pay 15 grand a pop. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. No one else has signed up for public comment. We'll move on now to announcements. Madam Clerk.
Okay, for the July 18th meeting, we have, we have one proclamation, and then on the consent agenda, we will have 3 special event items and 1 noise exception. We will also have, that's it for the consent agenda. Action item, we will have a resolution to set a public hearing for the Eastgate subdivision RHID that will be on August 22nd. We will have 3 zoning resolutions. One is for Care Perville Latin School for a conditional use permit. Another is for the Patterson Family Infant and Toddler Center. That's also a conditional use. And then we have a zoning for RT properties located at Southeast Horseshoe Bend Drive and 45th Street. The next item is a resolution for the NODO bid redevelopment grant program, a resolution for the city property tax rebate for 2024, and then a resolution, 2 resolutions, notice of intent, one for the city and one for TMTA for exceeding the revenue neutral rate. Discussions include City of Topeka homelessness strategy update, the 2024 operating budget, and then the Hotel Topeka of Center City.
Thank you. Richard?
Governing body members, first I want to tell you on passing of the ordinance on 5C, governmental bodies don't like to do that. In a perfect world, everybody would be fair to everybody. But I think what's important to remember about this is you passed an ordinance to try and speak for the people who cannot speak for themselves. And I commend you upon that. I also remind you that there's a special meeting on the 25th, and we'll be talking about one of your favorite subjects, the 2024 budget. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Councilwoman Hofer. Nothing? Councilwoman Hiller. Councilwoman Christina Valdivia Alcala.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to make the announcement on July 17th, which is a Monday at 6 p.m., there will be a meeting that is being put on by the Coalition for Better Topeka. The title of this is Help the Homeless in Topeka. Again, 6 p.m., Serendipity at 820 North Kansas. The governing body has been invited, District 2 has been invited, but also the whole of Topeka. There's about 300 seats that I have been told are available. And we know that this is a district-wide challenge that we are looking at. This meeting is being planned by North Topeka businesses and residents. It's not being planned by this councilwoman. Just want to be clear on that. The hope was to have Topeka Rescue Mission attend, and they declined, stating they had a board meeting that night. I will say that the Oakland NIA canceled their meeting on the same night so that Oakland folks could attend this meeting and for District 2 to show unity in their desire for, as the coalition states, to demand accountability, transparency, and improvement for the homeless people in our city. And I will add myself, because ultimately, that helps not only District 2, but the entirety of Topeka. Also, Fiesta activities continue after the rousing success of the 5K run and the mini Jamaica. The parade is Saturday at 10 a.m. downtown, starting at 4th Street on Kansas Avenue. Coronation Ball on Saturday at the Kansas Expo Agriculture Hall. Fiesta Mass at on July 16th at Our Lady of Guadalupe Church at 9 a.m. And then the Fiesta hours with the carnival, with everything back. Fiesta hours are Tuesday through Thursday, 4 to 11 p.m., and then Friday and Saturday, 4 p.m. to midnight in Oakland. For more information, you can go to fiestatopeka.com. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Ortiz. Councilwoman Ortiz?
I think she said she's good.
I have nothing.
Okay.
I've been there 10 years. I have nothing.
Thank you. Councilman Emerson.
Nothing, Mayor, and I meant 10 terms.
Okay. Councilman Kell.
For the past 2 weeks, I was able to be a part of a great organization that I will continue to be part of in the future, is the U.S. Military War Dogs baseball team. The team consisted of 16 active duty members, 4 veterans, and 2 dependents from all over the U.S. We played games in 6 games in Kansas, 2 in Nebraska, and 3 in Missouri. It was ranged from ages of 18 to 44 on the team. Our mission on that is to support our military, give back to our veterans, and honor the fallen. The closest we played here was Junction City, but we were able to honor a family of a fallen Topekan. And hopefully in the future, we'll be able to maybe get the team to come here to Topeka. It was honestly an amazing experience to be a part of. And before I could even say I wanted to do this in the future, my wife spoke up and said we were definitely doing this in the future, and hopefully maybe even get a team based out of the Topeka area to help the mission, and also get our active duty and veterans involved in the area. The website is wardogsbaseball.org. It is a charitable organization, so feel free to donate if you choose to do so. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Dobler.
Nothing, Mayor. Thank you.
There she is. Sorry about that. Councilwoman Nager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a reminder that July is, Disability Pride Month. And so that is something where we are celebrating people of different abilities, of disabilities, and making sure that they are represented and lifted up in our community. The disability rights movement really was spurred on by the civil rights movement of the 40s, 50s, 60s, and came to the culmination of the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act in 1990. And per that act, we have an advisory council at our city level to make sure that disabled citizens are well represented in our community and are supported. And so if you are interested in more information, this is kind of blurry to read, but they meet every second Wednesday of every month at 1 p.m. in the Sunflower Conference Room at the Cyrus K. Holiday Building. Sorry that it's not more clear. If you do want more information, you can contact Ernesto De La Rosa, and there is a vacancy currently on the board. So if you are interested in joining this board, please reach out to the mayor's office. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Duncan.
Thank you, Mayor. Just 2 quick things. I know it was in the news a week ago. We hadn't met yet. I want to give a shout out to Trina Goss over the partnership, and I'll take a very small amount of credit, but not anymore. In fact, much less than a lot of the people who serve on the Shawnee County Child Care Task Force. But we brought in almost $3 million of grant money, And just so people understand, we have a shortage in this community, and we think of about 5,500 daycare slots. That $3 million is going to do two things. One, it's going to we hope open up around 450 slots long-term for this community. It's also going to let us use some of that to do some innovative programs with some other groups here in Shawnee County and Topeka to add more slots in the long term and see how we can work with businesses and others to expand childcare. So Trina and her team had to do most of the writing. A few of us just put in a good word, wrote some letters, and did our part as members of that task force. But that's a big get for the city of Topeka and Shawnee County, and it's going to be direct money that improves a lot of families' lives. So congratulations to that hard work that they all put in. The second thing is, and this is just miscommunication, I think sometimes it happens. We're all very busy, nobody's fault. I was probably a little more out there in saying I want this on the agenda. But next week we have on the agenda the policy I'm putting forward, which mirrors the Homestead Act to offer some property tax relief for certain individuals of a certain age within a tax bracket. I still want that on the agenda. My intention, as it is, I think, with all of these was to have it as a discussion item first and then an action item the following week. I think that's usually pretty good policy to give the public a chance to digest it, understand what's happening, and provide a week of input after we have discussion. So whether I can make that request and staff can make that change for next week, or we need to make a motion next week, that was my intent all along. But like I said, lots going on, and I just think there was miscommunication with myself and staff. So I'll put that request out there and let the public know that hopefully I can convince you all to vote for it in early August, but I'd like it to just be a discussion item next week. So thank you, Mayor.
Mm-hmm. Thank you all. I just want to take a moment to again acknowledge the announcement from Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala about all the activities are associated with the Fiesta. I want to say how exciting it was to be down at the Mini Jamaica last Saturday, to see that venue just crowded with people having a good time, enjoying the music, enjoying the food, friendly, no issues. You know, you see some of these big gatherings in other cities, and I'm not courting bad luck, but everything was really, really, really enjoyable. Law enforcement down there was a very welcome presence. They enjoyed themselves, I think, almost as much as everyone else. But a lot of work goes into all of these events that we just had, and the big gathering down there at Celtic Fox. That was another gathering that happened on the same day. And being in downtown Topeka, you can walk within 1 or 2 blocks and get your choice of venue and food and drink and music. So we're having a lot of activity in this downtown area that people keep commenting on, that if we looked at downtown Topeka 5 years ago, we wouldn't have expected this kind of level of activity. So I appreciate the community coming out and enjoying these events. And I want to thank the Fiesta Committee for all the work that they have done in preparation for the Fiesta next week. It takes a lot of people doing a lot of things to bring all of this together. And they're all volunteers. It's generational down there in their effort. And so I want to thank them publicly for everything that this community is invited to enjoy. So thank you very much. There is a need for us to go into 2 executive sessions this evening. If the city attorney will read, please.
The motion for the first executive session would be to recess into executive session not to exceed 40 minutes to discuss employer-employee negotiations relating to one or more unions as justified by 754319B3. The meeting will resume in the city council chambers. The following staff will be needed to assist the governing body in its deliberations: acting city manager Neinstadt and other staff he deems necessary.
Okay, heard the need for a motion. Motion to approve by Deputy Mayor Dobler, second by Councilman Emerson. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Sylvia? She out there? Sylvia. Okay. We will adjourn into executive session, give ourselves a 10-minute recess before we start the session. Thank you. We've concluded our first executive session. There is a need to go into a second executive session. City Attorney, will you please read?
The motion would be to recess into executive session not to exceed 2 hours for consultation with the city attorney to discuss an attorney-client privileged matters regarding a specific employment matter as justified by KSA 754319B2. The open meeting will resume in these city council chambers. The following staff are necessary to assist the governing body in its deliberations: City Attorney Stanley and other individuals as may be necessary.
Okay, thank you. You've heard the need for a second session. There's a motion to approve by Deputy Mayor Dobler, second by Councilman Emerson. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, we will recess into our second executive session immediately. Concluded our deliberations in our second executive session. No action has been taken during that session. We're coming out of that session. And now I'll ask Deputy Mayor if he will speak.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I want to make a motion to waive the rules and add 2 items to the agenda for this evening.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilwoman Hiller. We'll need to take the roll call vote.
Do we want to extend past 10 also? No. Okay, all right.
Councilwoman Ortiz, did you have a question?
I just want to make sure we have enough time. If we don't feel that we do, if we can extend the time.
We'd consider that. I think if we move forward, we'll have the time. Thank you for checking.
All right.
Okay, have a motion and a second. You call the roll, please.
Council members Nager,
Yes.
Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Hofer,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Council members Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Acala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
and Kell.
Yes.
We have 10 yes, motion carries.
Okay, motion is carried. You have another motion, Deputy Mayor.
I do, Mayor. I make a motion that the governing body terminate Stephen Wade for cause under Section 2C of his employment contract entered into on September 13, 2022.
You have a motion on the floor, second by Councilwoman Valdivia Acala. If you will call the roll, Brenda, when you're ready.
Council members Dobler,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Hofer,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Council members Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Acala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Kale,
Yes.
and Nager.
Yes.
We have 10 yes, motion carries.
Motion's been carried. I believe we have another motion we want to entertain, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve a resolution introduced by myself, Deputy Mayor Neil Dobler, concerning the designation of an interim city manager.
You have a motion on the floor, second from Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala. Now, this vote will designate our current acting city manager as an interim.
That's right. It changes the designation from acting to interim. He,
Okay.
at this point, becomes our city manager.
Okay? Brenda, if you'll call the vote when you're ready.
All right. Council members Duncan,
Yes.
Hofer,
Yes.
Mayor Padilla,
Yes.
Council members Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Acala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Kale,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
and Dobler.
Yes.
All right, we have 10 yes, motion carries.
Okay, motion's been carried. I'm looking to make sure, I don't think there's any further business to come before this body this evening. If not, I declare this meeting closed.